Hi, it's Rich Hoffman here. Good to see that Governor DeWine signed SB1, Senate bill, sponsored by Jerry Serino. A lot of good activity on the Senate side. Good to see the House come together, pass it, put it on the governor's desk to sign to 2025. It's a bill that greatly restricts the diversity, DEI, inclusive kind of progressive stuff that has been affecting education. And in this case, this bill is focused on colleges, but as it cascades into other aspects of education, it's part of a larger story that's emerging, where we have to get all this diversity, equity, inclusion nonsense out of the education process, because it does nothing to teach people about how you educate yourself in society and apply those what you learn to a constructive society. Instead, it is focused on essentially a communist subpoint that resides in the background to try and emphasize that diversity, equity, and inclusion should bypass merit and skills and acquired assets. So that's why it's such a bad thing. We've identified it as a problem in our society for a long time. It's been in denial, but now that we have a Trump administration and a very strong voting mandate that says they don't want that kind of world, we don't like what DEI has brought to our world. Even though it might sound good on the surface, the results have been horrible, and we see it playing out all across our economy. So you certainly wouldn't want to train your next generation to utilize those methods as far as teaching, and that's your emphasis. So this particular bill targets tenure, radical types of left-wing politics that's being taught in our colleges. Because public funding gets attached to it, you just can't allow it to go on. So good on the Senate and the House for putting a bill on the governor's desk that he signed, and it makes Ohio a better environment for constructive, productive education. Something that should have been done a long time ago. But now we're doing it, and I think you're going to see a lot more bills along those lines to come. Now, DEI programs and critical race theory and all these things have been controversial and kind of reside in the background for a long time. This bill and the reaction to it, and the protesters that spoke out against it, the media's proposal that somehow this doesn't represent Ohio voters. I heard a lot of speeches leading up to the passage of the bill and it being signed on the governor's desk, saying that Ohio is a middle of the ground state, and we're not radical right wingers, and this is a radical right wing bill. Well, you look at the makeup of the House and Senate, and they represent the people of Ohio who have voted in all the different districts around Ohio to be implemented, representatives of the state. So for the speeches to say that we're not a particular kind of state, and that right-wing politics is ruling in a way that doesn't represent the rest of the public, that's not how these things work. People vote for the people they want to have represent them, and those people have spoken out and backed this bill comfortably. And even with all the protesters that came out, and I know that a lot of the political types of people have said that they think they're paid protesters, and the media goes around and interviews the people speaking on the Ohio State House lawn. Have you been paid to be here? Are you being paid by George Soros to show numbers? And a lot of those kids really don't know why they're there. They're there maybe they're there because it's hip and because it seems like the thing to do, and they heard about it at the bar the night before, and it seems like, hey, we want to protect education. And they think that education is DEI programs, because all their lives, they're not that old. When you're in your 20s, how could you know much about the world if your parents and your education system didn't tell you about it? what they've been taught all their lives is that DEI, the participation trophy, is the way to go in the world. And if you're getting excluded, it's because of skin color or because of some unfair sexual orientation practice, and that you can decide that, when you're 14, 19 years old, that you think you're a girl, and so you're going to change your sexual preference and how you communicate yourself to the world. And you might change it again when you're in your 30s and decide you want to have babies and start a family, and that we're supposed to build an education system around this nonsense. And so what are kids supposed to think who are out there protesting? They've been taught by the same people that the bill is saying we need to stop doing this kind of stuff so you don't make those kinds of people in the world. Because you can't really run a good state or run a good country or have a good world if you have people who have the wrong focus on what they should be learning and being educated to. So the protesters were very interested in articulating their position. I think all they do is validate why you have to make a change, because you can't fund that kind of lack of understanding about how the world works, when your focus should be on competitive enterprise and how to become a better person and learn all you can to be the most useful in an innovative technological society, instead of saying, well, we need more people to be hired because they're of this kind of color or this kind of weight class, or they came from a poor background, and that somehow all ships are going to rise if we bring in more Marxism and socialism, an idea that has clearly corrupted the world and destroyed it beyond measure, and that we need a continuation of those practices. State of Ohio through SB1 and fabulous work in the Senate to initiate it has said, no, we're not going to do that. We're going to change it. We're going to lead the rest of the country and stand against this stuff. And we have a Trump administration in Washington, D.C. that's going ahead in that direction for everybody. So let's get on board and lead it. Great. When you hear school boards across the country and they wanted to bring up critical race theory and DEI programs, they look at you like you're in some fictional landscape when you bring it up. I remember in Lakota, I just had a meeting the other day, and we were talking about they were talking about vouchers, and I was observing. And Doug Horton, one of the new school board members, that's way far to the left as far as relative to the rest of the community, and he'll tell you to your face, I'm a conservative. I vote for Republicans, and I support these school vouchers. But, and that's what they say, they do the same thing with critical race theory. They think you're not smart enough to know that they're really kind of trying to hoodwink you with giving a little bit, so they could bridge the gap and get to know you a little bit, and then turn the tables on you with their true agenda. And they think you're just not smart enough to figure out that they're just radicals. And just because they voted for maybe George W. Bush, that means that they're Republicans. No, not in the way politics has evolved. And I think a lot of people who voted Republican, who kind of lived in soft shell areas where they call themselves Republicans because it's not fashionable to be Democrats. So they might think like a Democrat, but they do everything with an R next to their name so they can not have people upset with them, and so they can win elections. And they certainly lie to your face, and they've been lying to our faces about DEI programs. We don't sponsor DEI programs. Prove it. There's no evidence of that happening. And then they don't look for the evidence. That was certainly the case with critical race theory. We've looked and we haven't seen any evidence that critical race theory is being taught in our schools. Well, that's because you didn't look. And the evidence that you did have, you're like, I don't want to see it. I don't want to hear about it. I'll turn off their microphone. We don't want you to give any public testimony to it. We want to continue to deny, and to lie and deny until the end of time. And hope that we're going to outrun this political movement, and we're going to keep denying it until it changes. And instead, it's going the other way. And that's what this SB1 has everybody in a panic over, because even though it's targeted towards colleges, it's certainly going to migrate and grow as a movement into all aspects of education. And in Ohio, things have to get more competitive, and you can't have programs like DEI harming the way that you educate people for a better, productive society. with diversity, equity, and inclusion as your staple of how you implement fairness, that's really a disguise for Marxism. If you go and read the Communist Manifesto, that's what it's all about. It's about making everybody the same, taking away peaks and valleys, taking away exceptionalism, and rolling it all up into a common package that waters down everybody's society and has given us a kind of a mundane, competitive world full of people that start very competent. And you see it in all sectors of the economy. Competency, execution of strategic tasks are not a priority. And it starts with these kinds of programs. So it's great to see Ohio stepping in that direction. It's great to see Jerry Serino and the gang in this Ohio Senate doing great things in the way of standing up for the future of Ohio and the education system that we need to have so kids learn the right things. And they don't just go to school to learn to be protesters to protect teachers who are really incompetent and they want to hide behind children and kids and activism to disguise the horrendous policies that they've created as educators. And is Ohio at risk of losing educators because of these policies? Those are the kind of educators you don't want. We're probably in a better position now that you're starting to implement these kinds of things to get better educators that are fleeing other states that have to deal with DEI policies because they want to work in a competitive area, and you're going to find it more attractive to the good ones. And if bad ones want to leave, go. We don't want you. No, Ohio doesn't want people who are not going to provide the best quality of anything. So if you want to take off and go. We want people who want to do the right thing, and DEI programs were never going to be it. And happy to see SB1 pass and that Governor DeWine signed it, and that the great work in the House and Senate came together to do something really, truly good. I'd like to see a lot more of that. Happy to see it. Anyway, it's Rich Hoffman here. Share, subscribe, make tomorrow a better day. If you haven't read my book, The Gunfighter's Guide to Business, I think you'll love it. Anyway, have a good day. See you later.